Fred here, welcome back to the Gear Obsession channel. Knob Creek is well known for some really good things. Stay tuned. So let's go down a short list of what Knob Creek is well known for. First and foremost, it is the boyhood or childhood home of, Abraham Lincoln. It is also known, especially to the gun community, as being the epicenter of all things guns, Knob Creek, where the semi-annual machine gun shoot takes place. Very important. And last but not least, Knob Creek is supposedly the name of this really awesome bourbon whiskey. Knob Creek was created by the same company that gives us Jim Beam. And it's made to represent a whiskey that before it was mass produced, sort of pre-prohibition kind of bourbon, you know, where it's basically aged 9 years in charred American white oak barrels in small batches and proofed at about 100%, sort of like a century ago. So Knob Creek is considered a straight bourbon. Well, let's first define bourbon. A bourbon is a type of whiskey that was started to be produced in Kentucky and distilled with corn after the Whiskey Rebellion. The barrels were branded Old Bourbon Whiskey, and when they were shipped down the Ohio River, this was the mark that the whiskey's point of origin was put on there, and it was stamped Old Bourbon County. So that's how bourbon got its name. Now, bourbon has to be 51% corn grain, and usually it's like 65 or 75% corn. And bourbon must be aged for a minimum of 2 years in new white oak barrels that have been charred. Nothing can be added at bottling to enhance the flavor, which is why Jack Daniels is not considered a bourbon. You know, I didn't know this until a couple of days ago. Jack Daniels, which is a really good Tennessee whiskey, can't be called bourbon, even though it tastes a lot like a bourbon to me, because they filter it through sugar maple charcoal, which sort of gives it a different character, but it's still pretty good. So we have Jim Beam here, we got Creek here, we got Jack Daniels, and I think it's just time to start tasting this and see what I kind of like. So this bourbon kind of costs like $30, and I really bought it because of its name, and I wanted to sort of see if it's really worth it over plain old Jim Beam or one of my favorites, Jack Daniels. So I'm just going to go ahead and pour a little bit in each here, just a little bit, to sort of get the smell and the taste of each. Oops, put a little bit more in that one. And now I gotta add a little more to this one to be fair. Let me not mix that up. That's Jack Daniels, that's Jim Beam. Then we'll open this up. Got this funky plastic thing. Go ahead and take that off. And I should raise this so you could have seen that, sorry. And we'll go ahead and open this up. Ooh. Has a cork, like a fine wine. We'll go ahead and pour that. And I'm trying to see the difference here. It does look a little bit darker. As far as the color, it looks like the Knob Creek is the darkest in Jack Daniels, and then the Jim Beam is the lightest. So what I want to do is go ahead and try the Jim Beam first. Not bad. I'm gonna wash my mouth out with water. I'm gonna try the Jack Daniels. Now the Jack Daniels has a little bit more of a aftertaste, a stronger, but it also has a sweeter smell and a slightly sweeter taste to it. There's definitely a lot more aroma coming from that Jack Daniels over the Jim Beam. If I had to choose between the two, I actually would like the the Jack Daniels better, but it definitely smells good. Jim Beam really almost has no smell after the Jack Daniels. Yeah, Jack Daniels definitely have a sweeter smell. Let me go ahead and wash my palate. Now, let me try the Knobs Creek. Well, the potency is sort of in between the two. And I like it. You know, there's some sweetness, but it's not quite as overpowering as the Jack Daniels is, but, you know, the Jim Beam really doesn't have any kind of scent. It is a little bit sweeter. I put the sweetness sort of in between the two. And you could definitely taste the charred oak barrel in there. All of them you could sort of find that charred oak barrel kind of taste in it. So it's pretty good. It's definitely better than the normal Jim Beam. Now, I'm trying to see if I like this more than Jack Daniels or not. You know, Jack Daniels is just so much harsher. You know, it really hits the back of your throat a lot harder than the Knobs Creek. You know, it seems to go down easier than the Jack Daniels, but it has a lot more flavor than the Jim Beam to me. So, I like this. I think if I had to choose between the three, I'd choose Knob Creek, and I'm glad I got the bigger bottle of Knob Creek than the other two. I have some other notes real quick here. I wanted to talk about what makes this a straight bourbon. If you notice, it says straight bourbon whiskey. Well, what's the difference between, you know, regular old bourbon whiskey and straight bourbon whiskey? Well, a regular bourbon can be blended, whereas a straight... I'll tell you what, I'll just read the definition that I have here on my paper. Today, all straight bourbons are produced by the sour mash method, using over 51% corn grains, which is what you're supposed to do with a bourbon. In the sour mash method, liquid from a previous distillation of bourbon similar to the previous ones by passing on some of those characteristics from the previous batches to that new batch, to the starter batch of like sourdough bread. Straight bourbons are produced containing only undiluted grain distillants. Blended bourbons contain at least 51% straight bourbon mixed with neutral grain spirits. So they introduce other spirits, whereas with the straight, they usually, when they're starting it, when they're got their starter sour mash, whatever, they introduce only some from a previous batch of the same bourbon, only those spirits, not neutral blended from somewhere else. So that's the difference between straight bourbon and blended. Well, I can't let this go to waste. It's been a rough kind of day. I'm going to back you up a little bit. We had a earthquake where I'm at, where we normally don't have earthquakes. That's pretty wild. It's been a rough day, so I thought it'd be a good day to do, excuse me, a video on bourbon. and a case of Jack Daniels, some whiskey. I don't drink a lot. This is about the most I drink all year, and I'm not condoning handling a firearm while drinking, so please, safety sallies, screw you, I don't care. I'm drinking whiskey. But don't drink it dry. And don't fondle your firearm while you're intoxicated, please. So, I think I covered all my notes here. I don't usually do videos on booze, but how can you turn down a whiskey name? What is the name? It's already starting. Knobs Creek. So, you know, if any whiskey were a firearms whiskey, it would be, for the love of Pete, Knob Creek. So again, thank you very much for joining me here, half intoxicated, on the Gear Obsession. I can't even say the name of the place, the Gear Obsession channel. I really appreciate you all coming back again and again and again. Have a great evening.